Buenas tardes. I will represent my the work I'm working for the Urban Renewal offices in Vienna, for having a little bit of insight how Vienna and Austria works. I mean, the lunch break was perfect because we also like food and drinking and are a little bit like relaxed atmospheres and are a little bit slower than other countries maybe. So that's what also happened in the 70s and explains why World Gentle Renewal was already a big thing in the 70s. And our offices about urban renewal already started in the 70s. So that was a time when a lot of other European cities were demolishing whole districts and rebuilding it. Here in Vienna, it was very slow. So we saw other cities, how they were destroyed, rebuilt, and all the problems with the segregation of work, spare time, like these different quarters and their problems. So Vienna saw already in the 70s the need for the historical city center to be renewed and not demolished. So we had already in the 70s this big discussion already with the public crowd about whether to do a tabula rasa, to tear down old quarters that had substandard situations, were very shabby, no had any perspectives, or to do a gentle renewal. So the word gentle is from the 17th on till now a very important word in our work. So it started here. You see a picture of the 70s, how the districts that are now known and pointed out in every touristic book, and all the tourists crowds go through these districts, looked like in the 70s. And there had been a very critical crowd of architects and inhabitants who started processes where they were convincing politicians not to tear down buildings like this, but to start a process where together with media, the inhabitants, the politicians, the planners, they were trying to do a gentle renewal. It was more or less the parts from the Gründerzeit. It's a time well known in Vienna in the 1900, around 1900, where all these buildings were built. It was a very prosperous time in Vienna, but all these buildings they were in a bad condition and had to be renewed or torn down, like in this picture. So I'm working for the Urban Renewal office, and this office, from the structure, it's an office, a service office from the city of Vienna, but we are private contractors. So I'm working for an architectural studio, which has a contract with the city for 6 years to do urban renewal work. So historical scene, we always had this mixture of bottom-up and top-down processes, and from the beginning very much involving inhabitants in their decisions, what to do or what do they need for their neighborhood and for their living. Or from the organization, I'm not in the department of urban development, but we get paid, or the money comes 100% from the department for housing. So the main goal in the 70s was to have better housing conditions, to get toilets in the dwellings, to get water, heating. So that's our history, where we are coming from. So already in 1984 and 1974, there were laws implemented for urban renewal. So we also had a legal thing that we could refer to. So the idea in former days was to stop the social digression process and to bring through the renovation new neighborhoods in these quarters, but always with the idea not to kick out the old neighbors, but to our office in the former days was the office who did the social work all around. The reconstructing. So we try to keep old and new people on a communication level so that they could live together. So this social mixture is in Vienna always and up to now a big theme that we are working on. But then in the last years, so we already exist 40 years, things have changed. The population is growing in Vienna. By 2035, we will be the second biggest German-speaking capital. And we have migration from, the biggest migration group is Germany right now. We had migrations from ex-Yugoslavia, from Turkey. We had different migration waves, and we have to deal with a growing city. So it's not only anymore the buildings we are concerning, but also the neighborhood. We have to think about compact cities, where to put all the people, and how the city has to develop also in the public space if it gets denser and denser. So here you see the map, how it's growing, and the circle is the districts where we are working for. So every urban renewal office has its own districts. We have 3. It's the 16th district, Otterkring, formerly or still working area. And we have the 7th and the 8th districts. They are near to the historical center and have to deal with totally different problems than the 16th district. So what we do, we are a kind of the thing in between the politicians, the administrative, the people, the local communities, the local economies. So we try to bring everybody together on one table and discuss projects and give information. So the one thing that every day, one thing that explains our work very much is if we get a call in the morning, and people are saying, well, I don't know if I'm right here. I have been calling already 10 offices in the city. I want a tree in front of my house. So we are the ones who know which department is has which duties in the city, which department is doing the street work, which is doing the planting. We bring together politician, administration, and people and try to build up a neighborhood together with the people. So you see this, what I told before, we also had this paradigmatic change in our work. Today we have also a crisis that's hitting Vienna as well. We have extreme growth of population. We have the renaissance of the city center with a very urban, good living condition, a good image. But we still, and more important, have to keep housing and rents affordable. And keep a good social mixture. Our city has always been a big arrival space for migrants. And the problems we are having now, because we had in former days in the 80s, there was starting a subsidiary system for renovating houses. So people could get money from the city to renovate their houses. But they had to keep their rents low for 15 years. So they, after renovating, they had to keep their inhabitants in the housing, and they were not allowed to raise rents. So we tried to have a little bit this social mixture, keeping this social mixture. We had also social living in very rich districts. We had huge social housing blocks in the 19th district, a cottage with a lot of villas and a lot of, you really see that there is a lot of money, but besides that, it's social housing as well. So this mixture was always very important. So that's the history a little bit where our office is coming from and what were the needs we had in former years. Now Vienna is growing. You see, it's not only the city centers where we are working, the inner core districts of the city, but Vienna is looking for new areas where the population can grow. So our work is also changing very much over this 40 years, and we are also, our areas where we work are changing a little bit. For example, the working area, this working district, the 16th district, is still very structural weak area, but other areas that are more in the city centers are not concerned to be structure weak. So we moved on to some areas on the periphery where there are new areas of urban development, where the new settlers need people to communicate between the new and the old inhabitants, the politicians, and give information what's happening there. So our structure, you see the orange points are our offices at the moment. We have around 17 offices all around Vienna. So we provide information and advices regarding the housing, like I said before, about neighborhood, about infrastructure, about urban renewal, about the local communities and mobility. So it's this all things that everybody who's living in the city are concerned of. So that's just the overview of our district where we're working. You see it's a very dense district. Like in Belgrade, we also have this block structure that's very typical for this Vienna district with green areas in between, but very car-dominated streets, a lack of green and public space, so a lot of cars, a big problem with parking. So that are the more or less the main things we're dealing about. And we have nowadays, since 2012, areas, for example, near the train station, that were formerly no-go areas. It was just tabula rasa, and they built a new district there with new inhabitants from all over Vienna who need people who tell them where to go, what's happening, what are the plans, how is infrastructure working, are there parks coming, etc. So we do some information events and provide people who are coming there with information about their districts, and so that is our in the context of Vienna where we're working in the western districts. Like I said before, it's the city structure is from the founding area, Gründerzeit. We have these short distances, high density, and a lack of public green that's very obvious there. That's our team. I just put in a photo, so you see we are a interdisciplinary team. We are architects, landscape architects, we're city planners, we have a lawyer concerning housing law, we have a geographer who is also a DJ who helps us with events, and we have two people also, we just they just came some years ago, as social workers, one with a Turkish background and one with a Croatian background. So it's also very important because most of the time we don't sit in our office, but we go out and talk to the people, the local communities, the local economies. And we have districts with a huge migration background, so to get them into the participation processes with the city, we need people who can also talk their language. That was And that's helping us a lot because very often in participation processes we are doing in the city, we have the same crowd, higher income, well-educated, people who can afford spending 2-3 hours for participation processes, while other groups, for example, the Turkish community, especially Turkish women, don't have a lot of voices in our participation processes. That's again some words like information, mediation between interests of local citizen, politics and administration. And we also initiate projects and do research how the city can develop or how our district can develop. So we are not only the think tank, we give information, we talk a lot, but we also do projects. So we also paint things, we also build up things, we water plants as well. So we are kind of the housekeepers for our district. I will just show the wide range what we are doing, the housing and renovation. Some guys in our team, they are very specialized in renovation, so giving advices to the house owners, what kind of subsidies they can get from the city. We had now, to have some numbers, in the 70s we had 40% of low standard dwellings. In the meantime, it's 3%. Also, like patios, gardens are subsidized by the city. If you wanna renovate your green area in the courtyard, you get a certain amount of money to do it. And one thing that I'm working a lot in is the public space. As far as I'm a landscape architect, I'm interested in the public and the green spaces, and that's my field of work. So here you see, for example, a micro invention. So the word gentle and micro is very, very often used in our work because our interventions are very often on a very, very small, sometimes invisible scale. But in a city where there's not enough place, where it gets compact and compact again all the time, we had to find solution or spaces on a very microscopical area sometimes. We don't have place for 2-hectare parks. We need to find them in very small spots. So that's one example where we really enjoyed to do it. We painted everything. It was next to a sugar and chocolate store, and we tried to find a solution for a public space that doesn't look the same like everywhere in Vienna, but to have a little bit color and connection between what's around. What we also do is if a small park gets renovated in this area, we start the participation process sometimes on a very subtle way. For example, here we just put some old bus chairs from Bratislava on this green space that was formerly just used for going out with the dog. And we didn't comment on the chairs. We just left these chairs there for half a year. This area got into interest for the people again. They were talking about these shitty-looking chairs from Bratislava and why Vienna needs Bratislavan bus chairs in the green. And they thought it's already the remaking of this garden. So it started a process in between the people who are living there, a lot of discussion. We were also there every Thursday where we're sitting on the chairs and talking to the people and getting an idea what this area needs and what it wants. And here we had a big problem with the dogs. It's also in these inner city areas we have the pro and cons about dogs. It's always a big fuss and big discussions. So we tried to make an analysis, have a participation, and produce a document that we could give the planners what they have to think about in this area. And on the right picture, you see how it turned out in the end. Meanwhile, it's gone from a dog area to a very used park. You can see that already after 3 years, it has to be a little bit renewed because it's used very, very heavily by children on these sitting smarties or what they're called. So it's a small garden. Another project was in an area that was very loud with a lot of traffic, where the city decided to just install some skater elements so that the young people could do some skating. And we tried to gather all the youth association in the district and also the skater crowd, and develop together with the skaters and the young people the obstacles. So we found also a skater who, by the way, was just studying landscape architecture at my university. So I took him, and he was really glad that he could bring his ideas into this. So there was a park that was more or less designed by the young people. That's, for example, just a plan how it looks like when there is a renovation of a park and how we start the participation process. It's just the word participation in Vienna. It's also we have a program from the politician, and every project needs a participation. But a lot of politicians, they don't really know what the word participation is. They just call us and said, yeah, okay, do a afternoon, go to the park, talk to the people, and then tell us what's happening. But we really try to fit a right participation process in every project, and also tell in the beginning the people in what kind of direction they can participate. Yeah? If it's what is realistic, what is changed, so give them an idea what can be really changed, how their ideas can be put into the project, and what comes out at the end, and not leave them alone after the participation, but also have, after the planning process, a guidance afterwards, visiting the parks, talking to the people, just evaluating if that what had been built is working or not. Another big topic in the city, like in every other city, are the community gardens. We have a lot of community gardens that we help in organization, administration. Sometimes we do the watering, sometimes we provide soil for them or material. It depends. Like from the structure, we have a budget around 400,000 euros a year for our 3 districts, and we have from this budget a certain amount of money that we can use for projects. And it's not told by the city in which projects we use the money, but like every district has its own needs and its own projects and its own approaches and methods how to deal with the problems. So we are very free and independent what kind of projects we support and which not. So it's neighborhood initiatives we support a lot. Here a garden around the corner that we are watering every morning when we go to work. A community garden with a school and children. And one thing is also the gardening around the corner. Some people, they just don't want to get involved in community gardens, but it's because it's just community and they don't have so much time and they don't want to have association meetings, etc. So the city of Vienna also provides these small spots around trees. People, if they want, they can plant whatever they want there. They just need a contract with us and are free to plant things. The only thing is nothing poison. I mean, the poison thing is the amount of, so if you eat a lot of tomatoes, you're poisoned also, but it's, so you can plant nearly anything you want. The only thing is that it has to look nice, otherwise the city, the administrative of gardens in Vienna, they can destroy it and do it themselves, but the administrational office is very happy because they have budget cuts as well, and not so many people who can take care of spots like this. So they are happy that the people are taking their own flowers and making the word for themselves. So what we also do is events in public space, like a little bit thinking new spaces, getting new ideas, how public space can be used in the heads of the inhabitants. For example, an open air Super 8 cinema where people from the surrounding could bring their old Super 8 rolls, and we had our colleague is a filmmaker, and he has this machine, and so we had some nice evenings in the public space and saw some impressions of the 70s and 80s, how the district looked like. And we are also focusing very much on work with children and schools in our district, just to open their eyes and have actions or performances with the kids. So that also from small on they know what they can do in their city and see the city not as a dangerous place where they have to go from their home to school, but they can enjoy their city and participate in it and use it in different ways that they didn't even imagine before. So there are other projects we're using, and one of our hard projects is the Otterkringer Straße. I just tell 5 minutes about that? Yeah, okay. And then you can turn off the micro. So it's a project that it's where all our heart is put in, the Otterkringer Straße. It's called the Balkan Mile of Vienna because we have a lot of Serbian, Turkish and Croatian community from PKS states, and the thing is, in the media, it was always the most dangerous street in from whole Vienna, even though nothing happened there. But the media pushed up this image very much, and we always tried to calm down. And then there was the coincidence that the water pipes had to be renewed. And we said, well, if the water pipes are renewed, then maybe let's think about a new design for the street. It was always heavy traffic, always a heavy autocorso for the night where people were showing their heavy cars. And we started already in 29 a kind of participation process. So one thing that's very good in our office is that we have time. Like this participation process took 5 years. So that's a very long time, and we were talking for the people and knew them for a very long time. For example, we started in 2009 with a kind of travel agency for Otterkring, where we had getting to know the neighborhoods. We pointed out some places where you could listen to cool turbo folk music or eat good shashliki or bleskavice. We pointed out the shops where you could buy special shoes and are just typical for the street. So the people living there learned to know their city. The next year we had this participation process with workshops, world cafes. We wrote a book, we published a book together with Elke Grasny, about the street, very theoretical, that points out the different shades of the street. We had an exhibition, and then 2011 the construction work started, and we were glad to find an empty spot directly next to the street that was empty for 1 year, so we occupied it, had the Otterkringer Straßen Arena there. It was a spot where people could go and ask about the construction work, but it was also like a playing ground for badminton, table tennis, boccia, etc. So it was a hanging out space in this in the street, and we had a lot of children and young people who were joining us with this in this spot. You see some impression. We had silent discos on the weekends. We had haircuts. It was just everybody could do what they wanted to do there, and it worked really nice, really good. And then 2012 was the opening of the street. So the things that were discussed in the participation, that the traffic is too heavy, the streets are too wide, were considered in the planning. About the design of the street, there is still in the architectural and landscape architectural community a big discussion if we like it or not. But the main things have been considered in the planning. What's really the main things that are important. Yeah, and I just skip another project. You can see it on our webpage. Now we more or less see a social space is needed, so we provide social space for the Turkish community and have swing courses, cooking courses for older men, etc. But that's another story. Okay, good.